She pounds stones harvested near spider lilies on the beach. Stones hidden in the ferns beneath lancewood. Stones that tell their interiors at the touch of her questioning palm.
Barb Lundy, Cal's president from July 2018 to October 2021, is the recipient of the 2023 Colorado Authors League Lifetime Achievement Award. But other than poetry, there's little similarity between her and previous honorees. Most significantly, past Cal members who have been recognized for their lifetime contributions authored numerous books. Barb's primary body of work, though, more than 700 freelance articles, harkens back to Cal's founding, when writing for periodicals drove Cal's formation as an organization that brought writers together. In that way, she's a throwback.
I truly am. I don't know another way to say this, but I was basically competing with myself. I wanted to see how far I could take this. Oh, I only wrote for somebody who wanted an article.
Barb published this poetry collection, her only book of poems, in 2020. The title influenced by her favorite poem. The inspiration for that poem makes a very interesting story.
It's the one that gave me the title. But Sidney Poitier wrote an autobiography about growing up in Cat Island in the Bahamas. And his dad was a tomato producer, but his mom was a gravel maker. Gravel. She crushed stones, and it was so this is called the gravel maker. She pounds heavy stones, dug out, then pushed and dragged. Stones she leaned into her hip to carry. Stones that swelled to a cairn, guarding her chair under the almond tree in front of her house.
The first writer honored with a Cal Lifetime Achievement Award was the late Lois Hana, who was both close friend and mentor to Barb.
A friend invited me to go to a writing class, and I was desperate to have something to do on top of parenting. So got to the class. It was in Arvada. Came to this adult ed class, and Lois Hana was the teacher. So that's how I met Lois. We just had a symbiotic connection. We got a grant, the two of us, to teach writing up near Montrose. She taught me the language of metaphor. She pounds stones into rocks, and rocks into pebbles, and pebbles into crumbs of pebbles. Scarred fingers cup raw fragments. She pitches them into a heap that puddles, piles, then pyramids.
Barb wrote poetry seriously for about 7 years. Her adult life, she says, can be broken down into several chapters, each about 7 years long. Originator of Market for Mountain Writers, Southeast Sentinel People columnist, Colorado Political Women's Caucus writer for the Colorado Statesman, Legal Aid Society volunteer coordinator, writing instructor at Arapahoe Community College, training manager for Colorado Options. Market for Mountain Writers, published annually for, you guessed it, 7 years, is a perfect example of Barb's Cal mentality. And it came almost 20 years before she became a Cal member.
I was at the Denver Public Library. I went every Wednesday. I had a babysitter. And I had a favorite librarian, and he was there one day, and I said, there really ought to be a local market, like the writer's market. So he said, well, you should write one. And I said, no, I just want to use it. I don't want to write it. But by the time I got home, I realized I get to call every editor in the state and ask them what they do. So I did. I just did that. I got the name for it because when all the writing group were giving me $10, Lyman wrote Market for Mountain Writers on his note. So, okay. I had people call me and say, why would you tell people this? Why don't you keep it to yourself and write? And I said, it's not the way it goes. You share information and then you build on that, and that's how writers help each other. The only way I learned about Cal was through Lois. And of course, she was a poet. And so she told me how many poems I needed before I could get into Cal. I knew after I joined, I could have been in Cal since the early 70s. You know, I had so many freelance articles. She pounds with a hammerhead, driven by her right arm. The dust of transformation swirls around her, settles on her eyelids, between her toes. She strikes fragility and shatters the fiction of stone.
Barb credits longtime Cal member Jane Bach and her husband Carl, who eventually joined her in Cal, with encouraging her to publish her poetry.
A Cal couple referred me to the guy who published it, Jane and Carl Bach. And they had been award winners, but they couldn't go to the award ceremony, but they were up in Lafayette, somewhere near me. Loveland. So I drove their awards up to give it to them, and we got to know each other a bit. So they were really taken by one of our Lifetime Award winners, and it was Rex Burns. And so Rex had us all for lunch one day at his place. We just got to know each other. And that's what I love about being in Cal, the layers of connections that you make. Not so much, I was very grateful for that referral, but just it enriches everything that you see.
Barb finally joined Cal in 2005 and realized the full value of membership when she became part of Cal's leadership.
That was the eye-opener to how much richer Cal became, because we met other members in a way that you don't if you're not on the board. And especially because I was the awards chair.
Barb is the 10th recipient of Cal's Lifetime Achievement Award.
Honestly, I'm so gobsmacked by the whole thing. I can't believe. I feel like I'm one of those worker bee writers.